Easy Explain Zen Buddhist Philosophy, Pillar 1, Teaching and Right Attitude. So again here, as we go through these 3 pillars of Zen, that is the title of a book by Philip Kapleau. We're really pulling from his pillars. That's his structure we're kind of borrowing and leaning on here. As we add in parts from Suzuki's book as well, just Zen Mind, Beginner's Mind, he breaks his book up into 3 parts. And what I'm trying to do here is make an alignment between the two. I think it works for the most part, but let's see. So let's start with Kapleau's Pillar 1, which is about Zen teaching. That's where we're going to start. What is the fundamental, most basic, essential teaching of Zen? So we're going to start with the practice of zazen, or I guess the teaching of what the practice of zazen is. And zazen is very specific to Zen. That is the sitting meditation that they do. So before we can practice it, we have to teach what it is. So we're going to start with the aims of zazen and why we're doing zazen. So the 3 aims, according to Kapleau, are we're trying to develop our power of concentration, right? That Zen state, that Zen focus, that Zen concentration. That's what we're trying to, cultivate and achieve. We're also trying to achieve or realize or get to a point of satori-awakening. More on that in just a second. Again, that's something that's very Zen specific. And finally, we're trying to actualize the supreme way, the Buddhist way, the middle way, the Noble Eightfold Path in our daily lives. So we're trying to bring this Buddhist, this Zen, attitude into everything that we do. And we can do that as long as we're practicing zazen. That's what zazen can teach us. So to go back to the second aim here, what is satori-awakening? That's essentially what we're going to be talking about in terms of enlightenment, Zen enlightenment, or Zen enlightenment, right? And there's a little sampling of someone who, in Kapleau's book, achieved this state. Just a little sampling of what this looks like, or feels like, or how it could be communicated. Someone in the 3 pillars of Zen says, "I've been complete and perfect from the very beginning. How wonderful, how miraculous." So it's that mindset, it's that realization, it's that internalization. That's satori. That's awakening to Zen, to you. So that's some selections from Kapleau's first pillar. Now let's get into the part of Suzuki's book where he looks at the right attitude, and I think this part of Suzuki's work translates well to the teaching of what Zen is. Right, we just got to get into this mindset. We got to get into this perspective, this right attitude. So some selections from Suzuki here. Suzuki says the point we emphasize is strong confidence in our original nature. So that goes back to the selection of satori-awakening. You've been perfect from the very beginning, and that is wonderful and that is miraculous. You're complete as you are, you always have been. Moving on with Suzuki, he says it is necessary for us to keep the constant way, again, trying to write that Noble Eightfold Path, bring it into our daily life, our daily routine. Zen is not some kind of excitement, but concentration on our usual everyday routine, right? That Zen concentration, that's what we're trying to do as we practice Zazen, as that's the aims of Zazen. We're trying to pull that in to our very being every single day. Suzuki continues, if your practice is good, you may become proud of it. What you do is good, but something more is added to it. Pride is extra. Right effort is to get rid of something extra. So this is where we start to see that Zen paradox, right? You want to be following those right teachings and doing the practice good. You want to be sticking to your zazen and bringing that concentration and contemplation into your daily life. And at first you may be proud of it, but it's not something to be proud of. You actually want to get to that point and then get rid of that point, right? That's going to be the right effort. No pride. Pride is extra. You may feel that, but then you actually want to do away with it, and that's the real satori, right? That's the real awakening. That's what we're really trying to achieve here. Suzuki also says when you do something, you should burn yourself completely, like a good bonfire, leaving no trace of yourself. That's another characteristic of Zen. We're going back to Anatman in Buddhist, right? There is the idea of no self. That concept here very much at play. Getting rid of the egotistical or the egoistic mindset. Finally, from Suzuki, about his right attitude, he says, when you become you, Zen becomes Zen. When you are you, you see things as they are, and you become one with your surroundings. So here we see that, we're connecting to nature. We're all together as one. Big theme here. So that's the teaching, right? This is the first pillar. We're trying to get into that perspective, get into that mindset, starting to understand what the aims and purposes of zazen are. We're trying to adopt that right attitude. And once we have that, we can move to the second pillar, which is going to start putting these things into practice But for now, I hope that helps.